We learned from the late Manning Johnson, who wrote a book called Color, Communism, and Common Sense, that blacks were really doing quite well in terms of family formation, in terms of entrepreneurship and economic success.
What was life really like after slavery? Were at a certain point, were blacks actually advancing economically, like say in the late 1800s? Were Southern whites and Southern blacks coming together and cooperating with one another and building on relationships, even though there was a law known as Jim Crow? Prior to the Civil Rights Movement, was there an element that was making its way through, a deceitful element that was making its way through our communities and the different cultures, bringing about division amongst Americans, white and black? Check this out.
One of the questions I often get when telling the truth about Martin Luther King and what the true intentions of the civil rights movement is, well, Chad, didn't we need the civil rights movement because things were so bad? Well, as we demonstrated in episode 2, what we saw in Black America was legitimate progress off the back of the sayings and the teachings of men like Booker T. Washington. We learned from the late Manning Johnson, who wrote a book called Color, Communism, and Common Sense, that blacks were really doing quite well in terms of family formation, in terms of entrepreneurship and economic success. We learned from his speech, as well as from other corroborating evidence, something that none of us actually learned in school. That when it comes to a lot of these segregation laws and Jim Crow laws that were on the books, much of it was agreed to by black leaders themselves, who understood that if they wanted to succeed, they have to do just like other ethnic groups in this country have done, engage in intra-group economics and free market enterprise. And that ultimately, by way of the marketplace and by way of the church, those racial barriers will begin to subside. We saw that it was actually the communists who sought to disrupt that by sowing discord, envy, and strife, which naturally resulted in every evil work. The Marxists specifically targeted Black Americans because, as Manning Johnson put it, they wanted the Negro to integrate and to collectivize not with ordinary white people, but with the white communists.
So listen to this. It says, in the early 1900s, particularly following the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution, Marxist organizations and the Soviet-led Communist International actively targeted and sought to recruit Black Americans. They viewed African Americans as a highly oppressed group within the capitalist system and a key ally in the struggle against imperialism. So they found a way to make communism appealing to Black America through deceit and lies, and not everyone fell for it. They used capitalism as an enemy towards us, right, to draw us in. And the truth of the matter is, Black America started to advance economically through entrepreneurship, through the free market, starting, owning, and operating our own businesses. Now, the slickest thing about communism was that it shed its skin like a snake and became socialism. And it went through the Black community to look for leaders to lead people to the slaughter.